Okay, so my name is Patrick Lastennet. I'm a director for Enterprise for Interxion. Interxion is a data center provider, colocation and data center. And today, I'm here to talk to you about a new service that we've launched. So it's a little bit unusual for a data center provider, but we're stepping up a little bit up the stack in terms of infrastructure, and we start to offer an infrastructure solution that helps protect your key management solutions. So 3 things I want to go through today. First of all, the role we play within enterprise IT. Secondly, I'd like to highlight a little bit the considerations the enterprise has as far as key management is concerned. And lastly, we'll dive a little bit on the solution itself. So what we see in terms of the enterprise IT is really this. The great divide. So on one hand, you have the application world, DevOps, and on the other side, the network, NetOps. And really, this is a trend which is really exacerbated with also the advent of containerization, which really should enable you to run a workload or an application anywhere, cloud, on-prem, etc. So just out of interest in this audience, who feels more of an allegiance to the application DevOps? Yeah, I think so. And the other side, anyone from the dark side of the NetOps infrastructure? Okay. So this is a little bit, so I think this is quite revealing. But it does matter when it comes to security. So how do we intend to bridge the gap? Well, if you look at the enterprise network architecture today, really 3 components: on-prem, neutral colocation, which is what we do, third-party data center with lots of connectivity, and obviously the cloud. So the trend, obviously, workloads are migrating to the cloud. However, if you look at on-prem, you still have a number of workloads which are particularly sensitive in terms of security and performance, which remain, managed on-prem. SaaS is also accessed through VPN, directly from on-prem still for a lot of enterprises, and they also still contract directly with the ISPs who pop their own data center. So where we are relevant really is all these critical security and performance related workloads. More and more there is a demand to consume them as a service. And if you want to consume them as a service, the natural thing is to go into a neutral colocation facility where you have all the IT service provider or solution provider who can offer this. The SaaS, there's no real debate about this. We see Salesforce on AWS, so this is very much the trend. And ultimately, your internet access you can peer directly in a colocation facility. So the current situation in terms of security, obviously, enterprise thinks about secure and managed encryption keys. 2 big things on their mind as well: GDPR, obviously, and a new regulation on the radar now is the Cloud Act. US Cloud Act. Anyone familiar with this new US-based regulation? So I don't know if you recall a few years ago, Microsoft, there was a big case between Microsoft and the Department of Justice whereby Microsoft was asked to hand over emails which they had stored in Dublin, in their data center in Dublin. And they eventually won the case and didn't have to hand over these emails. Now, the Cloud Act is aimed at addressing these type of situations, and now it is in fact the case that the US government, for instance, is in its right to obtain any information that Microsoft or any other cloud provider, US-based, might store abroad. So obviously this creates a lot of nervousness among certain European-based enterprises. So in terms of your security and where you want to store critical material, this becomes relevant. So the major consideration in terms of key management that we hear from CISOs and CTOs, obviously hardware versus software. So you have solutions out there which are capable of managing the whole life cycle of encryption keys like Vormetrics, SafeNet. They all do software solutions. how do you position this? Usability versus best practice in terms of security, which is probably more the hardware solution. Cloud or on-prem. A lot of the cloud providers have got their own key management solutions and cloud HSMs. Again, do you trust them or do you want to do it on-prem? Application performance. If you segregate your keys from the application, you need to think about the latency, the round-trip time delays potentially between the keys and the application in the space of payments. That's particularly relevant. Multi-cloud management, obviously. Large enterprises think in terms of avoiding at all costs the vendor lock-in. Do you go for the new solution, which is maybe has got an edge, but is not completely certified or compliant with the various regulators? And finally, how do you reconcile the fact that your senior management is pushing for consumption of IT as a service? How do you reconcile this with security, where often you want to have a very proprietary solution? So this is what we've taken all of this into account. We've partnered. So we are a data center provider. We really not, our expertise is not necessarily in cryptography. So we've partnered with Exceed Secure Solution, which is a German certified trust service provider. And we've partnered with all the main brands of hardware security modules, so the Ultimaco, Thales, and Gemalto. And what we're offering essentially is dedicated HSMs in all of our data centers, accessible either from our data center or from all of the cloud providers to which we manage and integrate the connectivity. So this is a little bit the distribution of our data centers all across Europe. The network, we've interconnected all of the data centers all across Europe. And we've also interconnected all of the cloud service providers, all the main cloud service providers who often happen to have their compute and their network nodes in our data centers. So obviously you've got the benefits of the proximity there. And in certain given locations, we rack and stack dedicated HSMs. Now, the way it works, we really don't have access to the content of the HSM. So the only way to access the HSM is via your key management solution or your application. But the benefit is there's no ambiguity as to where the HSM is. There's full auditability, so the enterprise we can escort them into the data center. If they want to perform the key rotations manually, this can be done. So there's absolute certainty about where the cryptographic material resides. And there's absolutely no risk of a third-party provider accessing this material. So Symphony, this is a use case. So it's not really blockchain related, but I think it is very interesting still because it applies to a big consortium of banks who use Symphony. This is an information sharing platform which runs on Google and AWS. So all the major tier 1 investment banks are now actively using this in production, and we see a big overlap between those banks and some of the guys who are behind the big consortiums which are driving some of the Hyperledger initiatives. So typically the way they've make use of Key Guardian, they obviously they'll have a dedicated Symphony pod in the cloud. They'll have dual instances of security or of key managers. So this is the key manager application provided by Symphony. And then they'll leverage our network to interconnect to the HSMs, which are located in various geographies. And then obviously you can achieve the redundancy using the native replication facilities of the various HSMs. Okay, and but one of the first early adopter of this solution was blockchain Helix, as a German-based startup which has launched an ICO platform. Basically, they have to manage identity and blockchain ID, and to secure their databases, they decided to use our solution. So this is also a way for startup new companies to sort of gain this credibility vis-a-vis of the regulator and the enterprise. It gives them the stamp of approval of, they're using the best technology in terms of, or the most recognized technology as far as HSM are concerned. And also the regulator love the fact that they can go and audit the data center and the actual location where those HSM resides. And that's it, really. Thank you.